Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Novus Chat. And for those who don't know me, my name is Bill Hagen. I am the founder of Novus NY, which is a company based in New York City that is trying to help people to come to New York and enjoy the music life that we have in this amazing city. I say this all interviews, but because all my friends are special in their only way. And today I'm so glad that I have a doctor to talk to us. He has a doctor's degree, so let's respect. I've met him last year in September, and I did an audition, and he invited me to sing for him as a church musician every Sunday. And here we are in this beautiful church, St. Ignatius of Antioch. And without further ado, let me introduce my guest to you. This is Dr. Richard Porterfield. How are you doing today?
Very well, Bill. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So I have lots of questions, and for those who know the channel and everything, I always try to start with giving you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Okay.
So the way that we do this, there is an expression in Portuguese called like sell your fish, which means like you're trying to sell your fish, you're trying to sell your services, sell your product. This is an expression in Portuguese. It doesn't make sense in English, but I'm trying to start with something cultural. Let's put it this way. So sell your fish to us, which means who you are and what do you do.
Okay, great. So yes, I'm Dr. Richard Porterfield. And I am the organist and choir master here at St. Ignatius of Antioch Episcopal Church, where every Sunday we present a different polyphonic mass setting and motet, along with the full set of Gregorian propers, every Sunday and feast day through the program year of the choir, which is basically an academic year, from September to June. And besides that, I get to play organ music of Bach and Messiaen and all sorts of people on the cassavant organ that we have here, which is a lovely instrument. You can see the console. And we also have a beautiful chamber organ made by Klopp, which is very good for accompanying a small ensemble, as we've done several times, and also good for early keyboard music. So I'm blessed here with fabulous repertoire, really fine instruments, and I get to work with people like Bill.
Wow, oh, that's good, thank you. I have some questions because I'm not an organist. I studied piano for many years. But, and I've heard from my previous interviews that every organ is unique.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
And, if that's true, how this organ that we have here at the church is different from all the other organs? How could you explain
so
that?
the pipe organ, is an instrument that has a long history. Mm-hmm. It's been used in churches since about, I may be wrong, the 13th or 14th century. It became kind of standard equipment in a church. Before then, it wasn't. So there's a whole repertoire grown up around it, and different schools, different national schools. Mm-hmm. The Spanish organ music is different from the French organ music, different from the English or German organ music, and all of that had to do with the kinds of organs that were part of the tradition, and then, of course, the tradition built upon itself in each of those places. So pipe organs generally are different from one to another. The same builder will do similar kinds of things, but every building is different, and an organ that's well suited to one church space would not work so well in another. And I think here the cassavant organ here that was built in the 1960s and has been rethought, reworked since a couple times, including the last time was about 11 years ago by Doug Kielitz, who was the organist here at that time. but I think this organ works very well in this space, and it is. It favors it's designed to do a lot of different kinds of traditions, but it's especially made in the French style. So it favors that. You can play Bach on it; it sounds really good.
Okay.
You can play all sorts of repertoires, but it's just a little easier. It works. In for music of the French tradition. So I'm learning more of the French tradition than I ever did. Elsewhere.
That's amazing. So I am understanding that the organ has to take into consideration the place where it is built.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's not the same thing with pianos, because you have a big piano, a grand piano, a baby grand, and nobody thinks about like the acoustics of the space. But I see that the organ is different. So tell me, you said that some pieces work really well in certain types of organs, and some don't. But basically, like I know that there are lots of moving pieces and everything. So would you say that this organ can play everything, or is there any particular composer or particular style of piece that doesn't work that well in this organ?
No, it works very nicely. I mean, if you I can play Bach. I can play other German Baroque and Romantic music and more contemporary pieces as well, and all of it. It's just made. It leans toward the French. Italian organ music. One of my favorite organ composers is Girolamo Frescobaldi, who's a 17th century composer, and sometimes I play his music on the cassonette, and sometimes I play it on the clop, because it's sort of in that transitional period. What a luxury to have two really fine instruments.
Wow, that's a luxury, because most of the churches that I've worked with, they have one big organ, like this is our organ, and they advertise based on that organ. But I am understanding that here you have two, one for a little smaller things, and
and early repertoire.
Early repertoire,
and I can do even earlier repertoire things from the 15th and 16th century. Which there is beautiful stuff, and you don't hear it that often. I get to do that too.
Wow.
While I'm selling my fish,
of course.
My goal in a program year is to present music from every period of Christian observance. From the Middle Ages, which we represent daily with the Gregorian chant. To, every period, every century. So we'll do maybe not all in the same program year, but recently I've programmed works by Hildegard of Bingen, and I'm looking always for new music by and especially music by women and persons of color, which I'm trying to, and I've been pretty successful, I feel, in opening, expanding the repertoire here in those directions. But there's a lot of work to be done. So women and persons of color that are interested in writing music in this tradition, do it, please. We need you. We need your voices.
We need everybody's voices
we do.
These days, because it's all about being inclusive.
Yes.
And hearing everybody has something to say. And I believe, just like you do, that it's really important to bring everybody to the table, like no matter your gender, no matter your race, or no matter your history or your background.
Exactly.
The most important thing is the music itself.
Yes.
And if the music has quality and has something to say and can touch other people's souls and hearts, that would be as good as a bar cantata. Absolutely. And all of those like standard repertoire that we as classical musicians we learn, and we learn to respect and to admire, but everybody deserves that admiration and respect as well. So now that you touched,
well, everybody deserves a respect, and the good work deserves the admiration.
Oh, that, just follow this because you put it perfectly. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, because, you cannot just write whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some rules, not rules, but, there is a style. There are some techniques when it comes to composition and, many things that you need to take into account to make the piece really flourish.
Yes. Yes.
And now that we are talking about this, I'm gonna shift gears a little bit because I want to know some personal stuff.
Sure.
Obviously related to your career. So in this channel, we always try to talk to people that are actively working and living in New York City. So, tell us your story with New York City. Like, you were born elsewhere, you're born here. How you came? What brought you to this point of life that you are an organist and music director of this beautiful church? What happened through your life to get you to this point? Tell us a little bit about that.
All right, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short.
Of course.
So I was born in the Midwest. I grew up on the West Coast in Portland, Oregon, which is a beautiful city, and has become even more beautiful since I left it.
What do you mean by that?
That's what happens. But I came east to go to college. I went to Yale, had a wonderful experience there, and I did a lot of music there, and I did a lot of theater. And I came to New York really with the idea of working in the theater, and I did some of that.
A theater as an actor? Or
As an actor, as a director, musician.
Oh, nice.
I had done all things like that.
You're talking about musical theater specifically?
Yeah, musical theater. I composed and directed some music for some Shakespeare plays at NYU and off Broadway, and it was interesting and good work. Didn't pay a lot, and so one of the ways that I would pay my rent is singing in church choirs, which I had done since I was in college. I had done it as a child, growing up, but had sung professionally since I was in college.
How long have you been here in New York City? How long?
Since about 1987.
1987. So when you arrived here in New York City in 1987, you had a mindset that, I'm going to work in theater and all of that. So what happened and you're saying that, in terms of the payment, it's not exactly as good. So what happened other than that to bring you towards like classical music and church music?
So one of the things I did was I walked into this space around then. Maybe it was in 1988 or 89. And I auditioned for the choir here. And I sang in the choir here. And Hal Cheney was the organist at the time and choir master. And I learned a whole lot from this man. And because he had really established this kind of music program where we do all these masterworks from different periods on short rehearsal time, but in the context of the liturgy, which is this beautiful dance as well as the beautiful music that we make. Nice. So I learned more and more about early music, about Gregorian chant, which I had already kind of fallen in love with when I was in college, and this tradition of Renaissance polyphony. So I did more of that. I decided to go back to school because I was still interested in composition. I realized I needed to learn more. So I had a good, really lovely undergraduate experience in a university. Where you learn some things about music at a university, and then I went to a conservatory. I went to the Mannes College of Music here on the Upper West Side for my master's degree, and I learned other stuff, really, really well there. I started to teach there and raised a family and did all sorts of things. While I was here, also, while I was here in New York City, I met a bunch of other colleagues, singing colleagues, some of whom had for a long time wanted to establish an ensemble. And we realized that our voices worked together and our personalities, we thought at least, worked well together. And it did, and we formed in 1993, we formed the vocal ensemble Lionheart, and we sang together for about 25 years. We made 7 or 8 CDs. I'm very proud of this work. A lot of it you can find now, our CDs. We went all over the country. We toured in Europe, singing, Notre Dame polyphony in towns in the Midwest, and all sorts of wonderful programs that we worked on together. And during that period, we were in residence here at St. Ignatius, which meant that we could rehearse here, and we paid for our rehearsal time basically by performing at services once in a while.
Oh, so is that like, since you touched upon this topic of residency?
Yes.
Is that how traditionally it works here in New York? Like, for instance, you have an ensemble and you would like to find a partnership with a church to eventually rehearse and, do some programs with the church. Is that exactly how it works for everybody, or it was something special about the way that worked for you that is different from what you've seen?
It's a model that that worked for us. I know some other ensembles that have done that. It's good, especially if you have an ensemble and you don't have, especially when you're starting out, you're not going to have like a whole lot of funding. Many ensembles, including several ensembles that are in residence here now, have been around for a long time, have developed their grants and things, developed their audiences, which is very important. But also, so they are pulling down grants from the state and from the city, that helps them. But yeah, rehearsal space is a hard thing to come by, and so that's just one way that an ensemble can get off the ground. So Lionheart's first concerts were here, and we produced them ourselves. And so we made an arrangement with the church, and then we that lasted for a while, and then after a while we were being presented by other people, and we didn't have to do our own anymore.
Question.
Yeah.
You don't, if just out of curiosity, why this ensemble is no longer active?
The ensemble, well, we were together for a long time. We were
25
for about
years.
25 years. We were never full time. We were always a part-time thing. Everybody in the ensemble did performing and something else, and eventually we kind of went to different. Some people went to different cities, we always had really nice places to perform, but there were fewer after a while. And this is natural. I'm sorry it can't go on forever, but nothing does.
Exactly.
So it's that I think that's as you're going into something, as you're building, if you're building an ensemble, you should have a sense of the impermanence of it. Now, there are some ensembles that survive the original people, and things get passed on and it becomes something else. But most groups have kind of a limited time.
So now that you're talking about Lionheart, yes, Lionheart, and we learned a little bit about this ensemble, and I'm gonna, if you would like to share some recordings of that ensemble,
yes.
I will post it on the comment section, so you guys that are watching this video can also check it out. So and then, as I am understanding, like you have a long relationship with this church.
Yes.
In many different aspects, because first you came here, and then you audition, and then you start singing in the choir, and then you got another project, Lionheart, a side project,
right,
that you were able to make a partnership with the church. So it's a long history with this church.
Yes.
Now tell us what happened, like how you became the music director here, because I understand that you started as a chorister, as a member of the choir,
yes,
and then you had this relationship, like how that developed until the position that you have now.
right. So I actually came to playing the organ late when I got a job as an organist for a Catholic church in Midtown. That's a regret I have. I wish I had gotten to the instrument earlier, because it's a much better instrument for me than the piano.
When did you start dealing with the organ itself?
When I was about 30.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is,
That's
it was some
considered
work.
really late for people that are really proficient. Like, you know, he's awesome. He plays everything, but you know, people that play and without even thinking and play all sorts of repertoire, you need to start studying like really early. And 30 for this profession, it's considered like old. But you know, it's never too late to do anything in this life. So, and this is a living proof, because now he's a music director, and he's telling us you started at 30 years old, but you say it's a regret because you feel like if you started early on in your life, you would be a better player.
Yeah. Everything would be easier at the organ. But you know, I had played piano, and I had been encouraged when I first started doing church music. You know, you should learn to play the organ, but I resisted.
Why you were resistant?
Well, you know, part of it, Bill, is I was resistant to the religious side of things for a long time.
Really?
I had begun my family raised me in the Episcopal Church, but then we didn't go to church much. And I had a friend I'm telling you my life story. I had a friend in grade school whose family was a very fundamentalist, belonged to a very fundamentalist sect. And I learned about religion from that, and it really turned me off. And it wasn't until I got to college and discovered the music that belongs to these traditions, and that I started to warm up to it again. And it was really being here at this very inclusive, welcoming, intellectual church, where you're not just encouraged to believe, but to think about things and to do things and to do things for other people. That brought me back to it. But that was a long process for me.
Of course.
So that is that may account for the length of time that it took me to get to the instrument.
Yeah, because we see like organs basically in a church setting. It's really hard for us to imagine like, oh, it's an organ concert, but you know, because the organ takes into consideration the place, the venue. It's really, I've never seen a concert organ, like an organ concert, outside of the church.
Yes,
I don't know if they exist.
There are a few places that still exist. My predecessor here, James Kennerly, is the municipal organist in Portland, Maine.
Wow.
where they have this gigantic theater organ, and he plays it. Now, cities all across the country, and probably in all sorts of countries, had these kinds of instruments in the late 19th century, early 20th century. But there aren't too many that are left.
I see. Do we have a place like this here in New York City? Do you know about it?
I don't think there really is one in New York City.
Yeah, I'm curious because I never heard about it.
Yeah, but so most people that make a living playing the organ do so in churches and some in synagogues. Very few are, and a lot of those people do concerts sometimes, and some of them tour, but very few people in the world play the instrument just in concerts.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's so interesting. I have so many questions, but I need to refrain myself from those questions for the sake of time. If you heard a noise in the background, it's because it's raining outside, and we can hear from the ceiling of the church like the rain, and like, oh, it's really raining. We both had that realization.
Yeah. It rained heavily, very quickly, and now it's going away already.
Yeah, summer and spring, we always have this. So now that we are talking about your career and we are talking about New York City, now let's focus on New York City itself. Tell us, could you share with us one thing that surprised you when you came to the city, coming from elsewhere? Like one thing that, oh, these people do this here, or oh, we have this and those opportunities here. Like, could you say something that is basically a New York thing that surprised you in a good way or in a bad way?
Well, I think a lot of people are surprised to hear that that there are so many churches in New York City that have professional music choirs, that have professional singing. I think it's a great thing, and it's also a thing that does happen elsewhere. But there are a lot of these kinds of programs here in this city, and there are a few in others. Somehow, I don't think it's a good thing, in this country at least, we have developed an idea that people that play the violin or play the electric guitar, if they're good at it, that they can make a living as professional musicians, but that people who sing in choirs are either children or amateurs. And there are wonderful traditions and wonderful ensembles, and it's great for children to sing. It's wonderful for children to sing. It's essential for children to sing. It's great and wonderful and probably essential for adults who want to sing together in an amateur context. But a lot of people are surprised when I describe to them, the professional choir that I conduct here, because so many Americans, at least, I don't know how it is in your country, but so many Americans just assume that everybody in the church choir is just there because they really love church and they like to sing together. That's good too, but there's also a place for the professional musician in the context of worship. This
is so close to home to me because, just talking a little bit about myself, it's about him, okay? But I need to tell the story just for you to understand what's going through my head right now, because based on what you shared with us. I study voice, I study opera, but let me tell you, I don't like opera. What I'm really passionate about is vocal harmony. I am obsessed with vocal harmony. And in Brazil, since we are talking about the culture in a country in a different way, in Brazil this is that. Like nobody cares about choral music, and the ones that care, they are volunteers, or they are doing for fun, or they're gonna do an arrangement. But in terms of developing skills towards choral singing, which is different from soloing, it's totally different. Like I feel like people just like, oh, I don't need to be a professional to sing in a choir. I can be a voice major and sing operas, and I'll be as good as singing in a choir, because the only difference is that I'm singing with other people. I disagree with that, and I'm gonna explain why. Based on what you said, I put myself out there as a professional choral singer. I can do a solo, yes, I can do a solo, but I'm not gonna advertise myself as, oh, this is tenor Bill Hagen doing a concert solo and singing arias from Puccini or whatever. No, I'm not gonna do that. First, because I don't like, and second, I didn't develop my voice towards that goal, so I have kind of a crossover voice that I can sing a vast array of music genres and styles. I can adapt. But because I chose to be adaptable to those different things, I don't have like a really operatic voice. I can fake it a little bit, and for most people, like, oh, you're good. But I'll never be as good as Pavarotti or whatever, or Juan Diego Flores, or like the big names. And what he's saying is that here in New York City, we have there is space for choral singers, professional choral singers to work. Because here in New York City specifically, we have lots of churches that really take it seriously, the music making of the church. Of course, there are plenty churches that work with volunteers, and the choir is made, it can be made like majority of volunteers, but they always try to strive for the best, and they always try to hire choral musicians, singers, choral singers. And I'm saying this because when I came to New York City, I was stunned by, there is a market for this. I don't need to feel like I don't know any better, that I suck as an operatic singer. But there's a place for me to develop my skills and everything, because I love choral music. And for those of us that are professional choral singers, it's not the same thing. Like, you can have the best voice in the world, you can sing the high notes, the low notes, everything, but if you don't know how to blend, if you don't know how to control your vibrato, this is one really important thing, especially when it comes to early music. If you don't, and also if you don't understand exactly your voice in a context of a chord, of the harmonies, maybe you have some trouble with tuning. And people used to think choral, you go there and you study music and you try to have your exposure to music through a choral activity like at school or whatever. But for real life, you need to be either a violinist or play any instrument or be a conductor or do something more serious. But what I'm saying, I don't know if you agree. I'm gonna.
I do. No, I do agree. And so a lot of people who do have careers as soloists also are able to do choral music. The people that could do both are wonderful to work with.
Yes.
But yes, there are people who can't, who might be able to sing beautifully in an operatic context, or even an oratorio maybe, but haven't learned to be in a choir or a small ensemble like we have now. A vocal chamber music, which is what Lionheart was. Lionheart was 6 men,
Nice.
a cappella, and here we do a lot of singing one on a part. When we break into parts, each one of us is on his own part most of the time. So absolutely. The vocal scene in New York City allows for many kinds of music making and many kinds of musicians, professional and not. But this kind of system of professional music in churches and synagogues is something that helps to support the artists who do that and something else, which is most of the vocalists.
And I feel like for people that are coming to New York City or are considering coming to New York City, like if you are a singer, a voice major, and you wanna try to make a career here in New York City,
yes,
I think the best way, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have the feeling that the best way to get started, to get yourself out there, is by participating in those choirs, because people get to know you, people get to know your musicianship, your skills as an ensemble, and for that reason, you may have to tone it down, your voice a little bit. If you have a powerful operatic voice, you need to tone it down, because not everybody have the same voice as you are or had the same training. And most of the times we are involved with volunteer singers, like people that are not doing this for money, but they're doing it for fun and for spiritual awakening, whatever the motivation is. And we need to make sure that but I am operatic voice. I'm not gonna sing this as soft because my voice is too big. That's not. I wouldn't suggest.
We've all met these people.
Yeah.
We've all met these people. We've all had these feelings.
Yeah.
Ourselves,
Exactly.
and had to learn no. Because what a musician really needs to be able to do is to adapt. And so yes, sometimes you meet someone and they say, "Oh, I can't do that. My voice teacher would kill me."
Oh.
Well, maybe you don't tell your voice teacher about this that gig. But I think what you're getting at is, I absolutely agree with you. Get a job. Make music. If you want to be a musician, make music. And here's the thing I've been thinking about this interview.
Yes.
The thing I wanted to say is work on your skills. Work on your reading, your sight reading. Work on your score reading, knowing what your part is, being able to hold your own part. Work on the beautiful sound that you make, but learn how to read music. If you want to be a full musician, a complete musician, which is the kind of musician that people in my position are always looking for.
How important would you say that sight reading is for developing a career here in New York City as a singer? How important it is, the sight reading aspect of it?
It's very important for this kind of work that in churches and places of worship, which again may not be what you want to do only, but it can certainly help support you. I'll tell you a little story. A colleague of mine from Manus was telling me that, and this colleague had taught at Juilliard, and one of his students was Jesse Norman.
Ooh.
And he said, she was a good student.
Nice.
Now, you hear stories about wonderful opera singers who can't read a note. I think Ezio Pinza was a bass who, didn't really read music. Okay, so maybe there are some people, but someone like Jessie Norman, she worked her butt off as a student, learning her skills as well, her musicianship skills, as well as that gorgeous voice that we all know that she made this fantastic career with. But she made that career with the technique of the voice, but also with the musicianship technique. And the thing about that is that the more you have the musicianship technique, the more you're understanding the music, not just your singing.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I need to understand, like for instance, if I'm singing a line by myself and I have other people singing different lines at the same time, I need to understand if my voice part, if the note that I'm singing, I need to understand the hierarchy inside the chord so I can tune it better. And this is a skill that's it's not exactly as obvious for people that are studying voice in terms of becoming a soloist, because when you sing opera, not mocking opera or anything, like every art has its value, and I think opera, the world without opera would be a mistake. Let's put it this way. I'm not the one that's gonna make sound in opera, but I can sing in a opera choir and all of that stuff. And I feel like when you're studying your voice, and you're so worried about how can I hit this note, how can I have these kind of harmonics, overtones on my note, on my voice. Is my voice, oh, now that sounds flat, oh, it sounds this or that. And sometimes some of them, they forget about, like, it's not just about that. This is really important.
It's not all about you. That's the important
Exactly.
thing. It's about the music. And so the more that you can put to use all of that technique in the service of the music, the better musician you will be.
So one thing that I do, like, on my humble opinion, that's something that I would like to share with the audience. One thing that I always do, like, if you have a chord at the end of a phrase in a choral piece, and you're singing the third of the chord, you need to be really attentive to the volume of your voice in comparison to everybody else. Because if it's a major chord and you have the third, I feel that for my ears, if I sing it softly, the third, because it's the third, it blends better. I can hear the chord better. Because I'm gonna talk about my voice type, which is tenor. I see a lot of people, like,
And you're on the third of the chord a lot.
As a tenor, like, if you have a grand finale, like everybody's singing really loud, and they have a beautiful C major chord, and you are the only voice on a third of the chord, you cannot give your 100%, but maybe the alto has to give her 100%, because she is singing a different note inside the chord, and you need to listen to her, and you need to blend with her, and the volume has to be equal, and a little, for my taste, a little lower if you are singing the third. But I see so many tenors over and over when they are singing, they have beautiful voices, but I'm singing, oh, this note is right in the middle of my range, so I have total control of how fortissimo can I sing or how pianissimo can I sing. And then if it's written fortissimo, and they think like, oh, it's gonna be fortissimo, and they go, and they overpower everybody else, because it's not about them, exactly as you said. It's about the ensemble. It's about the music that we do together. And I feel like one of the things that I love about choral music is that it teaches me how to live in a society, because everybody's different, and we are trying to make something together that sounds good for everybody, and everybody is comfortable doing it. And we know that everybody has to compromise a little bit. So for instance, we have a really low note for the basses. You cannot have, just because you're a tenor and you are on a comfortable range, you forget about the basses and you sing out. I know that you're feeling great about that, because all the tenors, as far as I'm concerned, they love to sing really loud. But it's not about just you, because think about, the bass is right at the bottom of his range. He's not gonna be able to sing a fortissimo if it's way too low. Tone it down, because it's not about you, it's about the chord, it's about the harmony, it's about the blending, it's about what people can hear from outside. And sometimes that's why I feel like it's so important to have a conductor, because the job of the conductor, among many different things, is to make sure that the balance is good, because the conductor is hearing from outside. Like, even if I'm singing in a quartet, I'm not gonna have the feeling of the feedback of my voice as clear as if I was hearing from outside. But I cannot hear from outside and sing at the same time, so somebody else has to do it. And in this case, here at the church, most of the times, Rick, he sings with us in some pieces, but other pieces, he's just a conductor, and he is able to give us feedback at the moment, like, this note's a little sharp, it's a little flat, and you're singing the right note. It's not even about like the right note, it's about how to
A lot of
to
times it's about the
context.
balance. A lot
Yes.
of times it is about, about the balance among the voices. And sometimes, I've asked Bill to come out a little bit, and sometimes, and sometimes I've asked sometimes, a bass will feel that he has to sing loud in a low voice and doesn't realize how resonant it is. It depends on the building, it depends on the piece. So what I really appreciate in being in charge of a music department and being in charge of what the product is, I really appreciate people who not only bring a beautiful sound to the table, but are also able to follow me, listen to me, watch me, right? So that, and during COVID, with a mask on, you try to, to communicate with your eyes and your hands. It's always difficult, but it's been especially difficult.
What do you prefer to do when it comes to a choral setting? Do you prefer to be the conductor, or you prefer to sing, or those are not comparable at all? If you had to choose between one or two, like somebody tells you, like, Rick, I come from the feature and you need to make a choice. You're never gonna sing in a choir, but you're gonna conduct a choir. Or you're gonna sing in choirs forever, but you're never gonna conduct. What would be your choice?
I think I would want to sing. I would want to sing and sing with a small ensemble with no one conducting in that case. If it can't be me, I get a lot of it's very gratifying when I just move my hands and suddenly all these people make a beautiful sound. That is a very gratifying thing. But I really do like to be in it, and I feel that I have something to contribute as a singer for these repertoires that we do.
Of course. Now, I can talk with him for hours in a row because I'm passionate about choral music, and we are having this opportunity to work together. So I'm getting to know Rick as a musician, as he's getting to know me as a musician. And it was funny that he said, like, I always ask Bill to sing a little louder because I'm so traumatized of tenors blasting out. My tendency is always to let me listen to the ensemble first. Let's find my place. Okay, I'm good. And as long as I can hear myself, I'm good. But it's not exactly as good for the audience because the audience has to hear your voice as well. So it's a process, it's a trial and error, and it's always evolving. And even among us, that we are professionals, like, we are always learning because we need to deal with different voices. My next question, now shifting gears a little bit, coming back to the New York City kind of thing.
Can I go back to
Go ahead.
You just used a phrase that I think is very important: trial and error. And I think that's so important in the rehearsal process. And that's something that again, we don't have a lot of time to rehearse, but the day that I'm not willing to try something as a conductor, if a singer has a reasonable request, can we try something this way? The day that I say no, well, that's it. Then I've stopped being a collaborative, and that's for me that's important. And I think a lot of young musicians feel like they need to know everything, or pretend that they know everything, and you don't. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to pretend to know everything. You have to show that you're willing to learn.
Wow, this is so important. You have to learn. You have to show that you're willing to learn.
And you have to actually be willing to learn. You have to actually be able to learn.
Eventually you need to learn at some point. Because if you're just willing and you never get it,
right.
It's not gonna work. But aside from this joke, like, I feel like this is so awesome that you're saying, like, you over the course of this interview, Rick gave us some tips and some pieces of advices in terms of how to be a professional musician, especially in the New York City music market. So my next question for you, now bringing back to New York City,
Sure.
tell me, like for instance, we have somebody from overseas or somebody from other states
Yes.
watching this video.
Yes.
And this person like is serious about what they want, like they want to move to New York City to try to develop their careers. What will be one of the most important things that you suggest that person to pay attention to in order to make sure that their chances get bigger in terms of getting successful here in New York City?
Well, first of all, I will say that it's gotten harder. That when I came to New York City in the 1980s, it was hard, you know, it was hard to make an artistic career in this city. I had to work, I had to work in offices and do other things as well as music. But after, in more recent years, I realized that my students, when I was teaching, for example, when I first started teaching in Manhattan, that some of my students lived in Manhattan. And after a while, I realized that almost none of my students lived in Manhattan anymore. They lived in the outer boroughs or they lived in New Jersey, and they commuted in to come to school. And we all know how the housing market has gone kind of crazy. So come to New York if you feel you really need to, and if you if you don't, you might have lots of opportunities where you are or elsewhere. There was a time when I really felt like it was too hard, unless you have family money.
Oh yeah.
To be honest, right now maybe it's not so hard anymore, but it's still very hard, and it's harder than it was when I first came.
Just taking back about what you just said, like you said that it became harder than it was before. This was just based on the house market prices, or there are other aspects?
The housing market especially. It just, it's always been an expensive city to live in, but it's just become kind of insane. With COVID, there was a drop in prices, but now it's going back up again. So it's a thing, but whereas in the past, I might have encouraged anybody to come and give it a try.
But right now you don't encourage that.
I don't encourage everyone to do it, but the same thing is true of being a musician or any kind of artist. If there's something else you can do and you enjoy doing, you should probably do that, because being an artist is very difficult in our society, especially. If you live in Europe, it's maybe a little easier.
Do you think it's easier in Europe?
Whenever I've been in Europe, I have felt my social status go up suddenly.
Wow, really?
If I introduce myself as a musician in the United States, there are jokes about, you must like being poor. And if you're in Europe and you say that you're in classical music, you get a level of respect.
Nice. So my next question, now that we are talking about Europe and talking about like that up in your social level, let's put it this way, do you see yourself living here long term, or do you see yourself living elsewhere?
Well, I've made New York City my home for more than 30 years now. So
you don't have a willingness to go elsewhere?
Oh, I think about going elsewhere all the time. But that's part of living in New York. And actually the key to living in New York is going elsewhere for some periods of time.
Nice.
It's important to go elsewhere. The best way is to have gigs out of town and to work in other places. I travel sometimes to visit my family, but I'm happiest when I've also got a gig.
Oh yeah, that's really important. So if somebody from the future, again, that image of somebody from the future telling you what's gonna happen, if somebody tell you like, oh, you're gonna spend the rest of your life here in New York City, it's not. I'm not talking about not traveling elsewhere
Right.
just to work or spend a week or so elsewhere, but as your home, like, would you be satisfied? Like, oh no, I can be here, and I already raised my family, and I already have a respectful career here in New York City. Would you feel like, okay, I'm good where I am?
Yes, I love it here. I love
What
the
do you
place.
love most about New York that now not related to your professional career?
I love the diversity of New York City. I love the people like Bill, and who come from other countries and,
Yeah.
and are attracted to the art and music and the energy of this city. So I love the idea that there's that New York City is like a black hole of pulling in energy. Maybe that's not the best image, but it's maybe anyway that there's an energy to the city, and that the new people coming in are always contributing to that and bringing new things, and also just the incredible ethnic diversity, and so you can get any kind of food. And wonderful cuisine of from all over the world, and cultural events from all over the world, and the ways of thought and philosophy of people from all over the world. And most of the time we live together, all of us, millions of people.
Yeah.
And most of the time we do so peacefully.
Yeah, and I agree because I was sucked into the black hole of New York City, like he's saying, because I just love the energy. Like I've always had a dream, like I want to do something with my life that is really major. And for me, as a born and raised Brazilian, and Brazil in comparison to the US is so far behind in many aspects. I'm not gonna get into the details, but if you're Brazilian, you know what I'm talking about. But the thing is, like here in New York City, if you have people from all over the world, it's because people want to take it seriously. Like people want to come here and they want to build something for themselves, even if it's just like a momentary thing, like you need to have some New York City experience under your belt, or you want to try something new. But nobody chooses New York City to stay to like a vacation when it comes to work and when it comes of self-development. Let's put it this way. And I feel like the black hole, New York City's black hole, like the whole world wants to come here at least once in their lifetime. Like no matter where you are, like everybody knows that New York City is a city in the U.S. These everybody knows. They may not know the details. They may not know how to speak English. They may not know many other things, but these everybody knows. And I just love the city, and I'm pretty sure you love the city as well. And we are we fell in love with New York City, and also in this channel I try my best to get some inside information from musicians such as Richard, and try to share with you, because I wish I had that information when I decided to move here. And as you said before, like either you have family money, or you have like some money, like you are smart with your money, because it's not technically easy, like, oh, I'm gonna go there, and because I have this energy and I have a beautiful smile, I'm gonna go anywhere and everybody's gonna give me opportunities, because there are opportunities for everybody. Yes, there are opportunities for everybody, but there is no guarantee that you're gonna get the first thing that you're gonna try. Yes. And for that rainy day like today, you need to be smart with your finances. So instead of like, that would be my advice, because that's what I did. Instead of just coming to New York City like, oh, I have the money for the plane tickets and I have money for 2 months of rent. That's dangerous. I would say that's dangerous based on everything that we discussed.
some people come here, and the office job or the whatever side hustle that they're doing ends up being what they spend their time on, and they lose the thing that they came here for. I had a teacher when I grew up in Portland, an acting teacher, wonderful actor, wonderful singer, really talented person. And he came and he did wonderful things in the regional theater, and he continued to do things in regional theater. He came to New York and spent a little time and just had a terrible time. And he just realized, this is not for me. And he went on and he's had a happy life. So there are all sorts of places in this country and this world where you can do these things. But as we've said, if you want to do it in music, you need to have your skills in place. You need to be smart and self-aware about how you want to spend your days and nights, how you want to spend your time.
Yeah.
And there was something more, but I forgot what it was.
No worries, but you already said enough, because if you take this interview and you write down a transcript of this interview, you're gonna get really nice information, really helpful information for you for those who are considering to make that move, which is a major thing, especially if you come from elsewhere like I did. And when I came here, I couldn't speak English. Like I could say, I'm hungry, give me food, I'm dying. Like the book is on the table. That's the first word, the first phrase that everybody learns. The book is on the table, the sky is blue. That's the second one.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Like, I had like a medium, like intermediate
level. Did you
level.
study English in high school or college?
Yeah, in Brazil it works like, I had once a week 45-minute lesson during my school years in English. And then I did a 1.5 year course, but it's like twice a week for 1 hour. It's never gonna be the same, and it's never gonna be as near as you should be in terms of your level of speaking. Like to this day, I make a lot of mistakes with my pronunciation, and I have an accent, but guess what? Most of people in New York City, they have accents from elsewhere, because at least from everybody that I know very few true New Yorkers, like people that were born and raised here. Everybody's from elsewhere. Like, Rick is from elsewhere. I am from another country, and we have plenty of people from elsewhere that make their lives meaningful here, because again, we love the city and we love the energy. Now, just to close this interview, I'm sorry I talked a little too much, but the focus is on you. Tell me, like, if there is no, for instance, if there is no language barrier anywhere in the world, like you are able to be heard by every person in the world, what will be your message to humanity at large? I know it's a really deep, but I like deep conversations, because but it can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about music. Like, what you would like to say to everybody in the world to hear? What will be your message?
Well, I think I would say, let me just speak to, I don't think I can speak to the whole world. Let me speak to the musicians of the world. Let me speak to the musicians of the world and say that we get very involved in the technical demands of our art, which is good. And we become concerned about whether we're doing something right, whether it's good enough, whether it's right. And we very often forget how meaningful music is to our audiences. I've had the experience, especially working in the context of worship, and also in the context of singing with Lionheart, where we were 6 men singing a cappella bringing all sorts of repertoires to different places. And time and again, people have told me, you know, how much it means to them that the music made them cry, or that, you know, some relative was dying and they would listen to our records and, you know, feel comforted. And it's important. Music is really important in human life. Don't forget that.
Oh, love it. I'm gonna repeat. Music is important in human life. Don't forget that. So with those amazing words that talk dearly to my heart, because I'm a musician and I'm obsessed with that. Thank you so much, Rick, for
Thank you,
this
Bill.
interview. Do you have anything that you would like to share in terms of upcoming projects or anything you're working on? Or inviting people to come to the church?
Come, yes. Come hear us sometime. It's a lovely thing. Just, yeah. If you do come to New York or wherever you are, yeah, look around, and there are so many. Oh, I know what the other thing I wanted to say was.
Yes, go
Here's
ahead.
the other thing I wanted to say, because we talked about opportunities, and as an artist, sometimes you will be hired by somebody else to do something that you want to do. But very often you have to make your own opportunities. And this again can be expensive. You can pour a whole lot of time and energy into working with an ensemble or putting people together and paying them. Sometimes someone will do if they have a vision, and sometimes it'll just happen once and it's gone. But sometimes it holds together, and sometimes if you find the right people to work with, you can really build something. And it's okay and good to kind of follow the rules and do the things that the gatekeepers need you to do, but sometimes you can open your own gates wherever you are.
Awesome. Rick, thank you so much once again.
Thank
you. Guys, thank you so much, and see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.